It was a quiet morning in late autumn, the kind of morning when the mist clings to the windows and even the birds seem hesitant to sing. Inside a sprawling estate just outside of Asheville, North Carolina, a man known for his silence sat alone at a granite kitchen island. His name, Grayson Hale, 40 years old, billionaire, CEO of Hale Technologies, and a man whose coldness was legend. He wasn't cruel, just unreachable. His staff never lasted, his smile never showed, and his calendar down to the second was tighter than airport security. But on that misty Monday morning, everything was about to change, because a woman with a crooked smile and scuffed sneakers was about to walk through his door and completely rearrange the walls he'd spent decades building around his heart. Her name was Callie Brooks, and she wasn't just here to clean. She was here to shake the foundation of his carefully controlled life. Grayson was already on edge. The resumes he'd been reviewing were bland, robotic responses, fake pleasantries, but he had no choice. His previous housekeeper had lasted only 6 days. The one before, her 3. So, when the doorbell rang at 9 a.m. sharp, he barely looked up. "It's unlocked," he called flatly, eyes still fixed on his tablet. The woman who entered didn't match the clinical expectations he'd grown used to. She wasn't overdressed or stiff. In fact, her hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her coat was 2 sizes too big. "Morning," she said chipper. "I'm Callie, here for the interview, or possibly the gauntlet." Grayson glanced up, brows raised. The gauntlet. Callie grinned. "Well, that's what the online reviews say. Working here is like surviving Navy SEAL training, without the ocean." A beat of silence. Then, to his own surprise, the corner of Grayson's mouth twitched. Just slightly. He quickly straightened. "You're applying for a housekeeping job, not stand-up comedy." Callie folded her hands. "I can vacuum and make jokes. Multitasking is my thing." Still holding his stoic expression, he gestured to the seat across from him. "Experience. I worked in hotels during college, did housekeeping and some concierge work, then transitioned to childcare when I had my daughter." Grayson tilted his head. "You have a child." Callie nodded, her voice steady. 6 years old. Her name is Lily. Sometimes I might need to bring her with me. If that's a deal breaker, I understand. It should have been. Children were unpredictable, loud, messy, everything Grayson avoided. But something in the way Callie said it, no guilt, no flinch, stopped him. He looked directly into her eyes, searching for a crack, a sales pitch. All he found was truth. He leaned back in his chair. 2-week trial, he said. You start tomorrow, but don't expect to last longer than that. Callie smiled wide. Then I guess I'd better break the record. That night, as he reviewed the security footage from the interview, as he often did with new hires, he watched the moment Callie walked in, noticed how she placed her boots on the mat before stepping in, how she looked around the mansion with curiosity, not greed, and how she met his stare without flinching. Grayson shut the laptop. He wasn't sure what bothered him more, her confidence, or the part of him that almost hoped she'd prove him wrong. The next morning, Callie arrived 5 minutes early. She greeted the guards by name, nodded to the gardener, and walked in carrying a second-hand backpack stuffed with cleaning supplies. She moved through the house like she belonged, but not in a way that felt presumptuous. It was like she respected the space, the stillness, the walls that had forgotten what it felt like to echo with laughter. Grayson stayed in his study that day, observing from afar. But in the kitchen he heard the soft clink of dishes. In the hall, the rhythmic hum of a vacuum cleaner. And somewhere between the grand piano and the dusty library, he heard something strange. Someone singing. Soft, clear, happy. It took him a second to realize she was singing. In his house. And it didn't feel invasive. It felt alive. That evening, Grayson sat on the edge of his bed, staring at nothing. He didn't know why his chest felt tighter. Not in a bad way. Just tighter. It was day 1. She'd last maybe another 5. But for the first time in months, he wasn't dreading tomorrow. Grayson Hale didn't believe in second chances. He believed in contracts, performance reviews, and quarterly earnings. Trust was a currency he hadn't invested in for years, and certainly not since the day his former business partner gutted him both financially and emotionally. So, when Callie Brooks breezed through her second week without incident, No broken vases, no probing questions, no accidental access to private rooms. Grayson's instincts told him something was off. Too perfect, too polite, too pure. It didn't sit right with him. So he decided to test her. It was a Wednesday afternoon, gray and quiet. Callie was scheduled to clean the study that day, a room Grayson rarely allowed anyone to enter without supervision. And that's where he set the trap. He opened the sleek black safe in the corner of the room and pulled out 5 neat stacks of crisp $100 bills. He dropped a few on the hardwood floor, just enough to be seen. Then he left the safe slightly ajar, its interior exposed like a wound. Finally, he reclined in his leather chair, tilted his head back, and closed his eyes. Just enough to appear asleep, but with his senses sharp as ever. It was game time. A knock on the door. "Mr. Hale, just here to clean." He said nothing, stayed perfectly still. The door creaked open. Soft footsteps padded in, Callie's signature light walk. She was humming again, not too loud, not trying to impress, just being herself. Grayson's heartbeat ticked faster. This was always the part where people revealed who they really were. Callie dusted the bookshelves, first carefully shifting leather-bound volumes. Then she moved toward the desk. Then the safe. Grayson's breath caught. She paused, bent down, saw the cash. His fingers curled slightly. This was it. The moment he'd seen play out too many times before. But then, something strange happened. Callie didn't pocket the money. She didn't even hesitate. Instead, she knelt down, picked up each bill with care, smoothed out the creases, and placed them gently on the desk. Grayson cracked one eyelid open a sliver. She was arranging them, first in a square, then a circle, then, oddly, a heart. What? A heart? She giggled softly to herself, then pulled something from her pocket, a yellow sticky note. She scribbled a message and stuck it beside the heart-shaped money pile. Even money deserves a little love. Grayson's brow twitched. What in the world? She didn't just pass the test, she turned it into a whimsical art project. Then she turned to the window, started dusting, and began singing again. Her voice drifted softly through the air, filling the cracks in the room that had only ever known silence. Grayson didn't move. He couldn't. He was frozen, not with fear, but with something far more dangerous. Hope. After she left the study, Grayson sat up slowly. He stared at the bills on the desk, the sticky note with the crooked smiley face, the heart, the message. He picked up the note, read it again. Even money deserves a little love. He shook his head, a stunned half-laugh escaping his lips. Who does that? He muttered aloud. Then, without really thinking, he opened the drawer of his desk, the one filled with contracts, legal documents, and stock agreements, and placed the sticky note inside, right on top. That evening, Grayson skipped his usual solitary dinner. Instead, he sat by the fireplace in the great room, staring into the flames. He didn't know what unnerved him more, that Callie had passed his test, or that she hadn't even realized it was a test. He had thrown every red flag he could, wealth, temptation, opportunity, and she had responded with kindness, humor, art. Who was this woman? The next morning when Callie arrived, she was as cheerful as ever. "Morning, Mr. Hale," she called as she passed him in the foyer. "The vacuum named itself last night. Just so you know, we're now calling it Sir Sucks-a-Lot. Hope that's cool." Grayson blinked, and then to his own astonishment, he laughed. A real laugh. Out loud, it echoed off the marble. Callie looked back over her shoulder with mock suspicion. "Did you just laugh?" Briefly he replied, recovering. She grinned. "Don't worry, it's not contagious." But it was, he'd just caught the first symptom of something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Trust. 3 weeks into her trial, Callie Brooks had become something of a phenomenon inside the Hale estate. The once sterile halls now bore signs of life, colorful sticky notes on the fridge, the faint scent of vanilla and lemons in the air, and laughter. Light, spontaneous, unfiltered laughter, drifting between the walls like a forgotten melody. Grayson Hale, the man known for emotionless boardroom decisions and a voice as steady as a metronome, found himself listening for the hum of her voice, for her footsteps in the hallway, for the next ridiculous name she might give the toaster. But then one Thursday morning, something unexpected happened. Callie arrived with someone new. Grayson was reviewing quarterly reports in the library when he heard a softer voice, high-pitched, curious, and full of wonder. He stepped out and spotted them near the front entrance. Callie looked nervous. Standing beside her, holding tightly to her hand, was a small girl in a ladybug raincoat. "Mr. Hale," Callie began quickly. "I'm so sorry. My sitter canceled last minute, and I didn't want to leave her alone. I'll keep her out of your way, I promise." Grayson stared at the girl, who stared right back at him with wide hazel eyes and a teddy bear clutched under one arm. "This is Lily Callie," added voice quiet. "My daughter." The child blinked, then lifted a hand in a small wave. "Hi," she said. "Are you the boss?" "My mom says," frowns like a statue. Callie gasped. "Lily." But Grayson chuckled. A small incredulous sound. "She's not wrong," he muttered. He looked at Lily, then at Callie, and nodded once. "She can stay. Just don't let her go near the antique swords in the west hallway." Callie blinked in surprise. "You're serious?" "I am." Lily beamed. "Cool. Can I name the robot vacuum?" Grayson raised an eyebrow. "He already has a name." "Sir Sucks-a-Lot," she guessed. Callie groaned. "Lily." Grayson smirked. "Approved." Later that afternoon, while Callie was cleaning the upstairs gallery, Lily sat quietly in the great room, sketching on a pad of paper. Grayson walked by, intending to head back to the library, until he heard it. Crash! Glass shattering. Callie appeared from the stairwell a second later, wide-eyed, and gasped when she saw the damage. A crystal vase, one of only 2 originals from a 17th century Venetian glassmaker, lay in pieces on the floor. Grayson froze at the threshold. Lily stood in the middle of the chaos, small hands pressed to her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was just trying to smell the flowers. I didn't mean to." Callie hurried forward, gently pulling her daughter behind her. "Mr. Hale, I will replace it. I'll find a way. I swear. I wasn't watching her closely enough. Grayson raised a hand. He stepped forward. Lily, eyes glimmering with unshed tears, stepped out from behind her mother. "I'll fix it," she said softly. "I know I can't fix the glass, but I can fix the flowers." She carefully gathered the lilies, some still intact, others bruised, and placed them into a small ceramic vase from the entryway table. She wrapped the broken stems in tissue paper and laid them beside the vase gently as though tucking them into bed. Then she looked up. "I'll call it the vase that stood back up." The room was silent. Callie looked torn between sobbing and smiling. Grayson felt something crack, not like a break, more like the first shift of spring beneath a long, frozen winter. He crouched down eye level with the little girl. "Why did you do that?" he asked, voice quiet. Lily didn't flinch. "Because Mama says if something breaks, you can still make something beautiful from it, just in a different way." Grayson nodded slowly. His throat tightened. He looked at the child, at the imperfect bouquet, and for the first time in years, he felt seen. That evening, he found himself lingering near the kitchen while Callie reheated leftover soup. Lily was coloring at the table. "Hey," she chirped at Grayson, holding up her picture. "I drew you." He looked at the crayon sketch. It was him, grumpy eyebrows and all, next to a smiling vacuum with googly eyes. "It's accurate," he said. Callie laughed. "Mr. Hale," she said softly. "Thank you for not getting angry today. I mean it." He glanced at her. "I wasn't angry." She nodded and after a pause added, "She doesn't have many adults she can trust, but she already trusts you." Grayson felt that pressure again, tight, unfamiliar. But this time it didn't scare him. It grounded him. That night, he placed the small ceramic vase on the library table beside his father's clock. The original crystal may have shattered, but somehow this new version felt more honest, more alive. It was a rainy Monday when everything changed. The kind of day where thunder murmured in the distance, and the sky couldn't decide if it wanted to weep or sleep. Inside the Hale estate, Callie Brooks moved slower than usual. Her smile, though present, was thinner, her cheeks flushed with a heat that had nothing to do with embarrassment. Still, she swept the floors, loaded the dishwasher, tidied the den where Lily had left a trail of coloring books and plastic ponies. She kept moving because that's what single mothers do, even when they shouldn't. And Grayson Hale, whose eyes missed nothing these days, noticed. By early afternoon, Callie was in the pantry organizing spices when a wave of dizziness hit her like a freight train. Her knees buckled. She barely managed to grip the doorframe before collapsing to the floor, the world spinning around her like a cruel carousel. It was Lily who found her. "Mama," she whispered, her voice laced with panic. "Mama, wake up." No response. That's when she did something she'd never done before. She ran to find Grayson. He was in his office going over a proposal when Lily burst in without knocking, eyes wide and terrified. "Uncle Grayson, Mama's on the floor and won't wake up." Grayson dropped the report instantly and sprinted behind her. When he saw Callie slumped against the pantry wall, her face flushed skin, clammy, he froze for only a second. Then instincts, ones he didn't know he had, kicked in. He knelt, checked her forehead. Burning. Her breaths were shallow. Her eyes fluttered. "Callie, can you hear me?" he said, softer than he'd spoken to anyone in years. Her eyelids cracked open. "Sorry," she whispered. "Just tired. Need a minute." "You need rest," he said firmly. "Not apologies." He lifted her gently into his arms, startling her. She was so light, too light. Callie blinked up at him. "What are you doing?" "Carrying you to bed," he answered simply. "But stop talking." She didn't resist. Lily trailed behind them like a worried shadow, clutching her teddy bear. Grayson laid Callie in the guest bedroom, tucked the blanket around her, and looked at Lily. "Stay with your mom. I'll be back." "But where are you going?" "I'm making porridge." Lily blinked. "You know how?" Grayson hesitated. "No," he admitted, "but you'll help me, right?" The kitchen had never seen such chaos. Rice spilled across the counter. Water boiled over. Grayson tried to follow instructions from a recipe he found online, but terms like simmer and whisk felt like cryptic puzzles. Lily, perched on a stool, directed him like a tiny foreman. "Not like that. Wash the rice twice, Mama always says it's important." He obeyed. When he accidentally dumped too much salt in the pot, Lily shook her head. "Mama says, season with love, not panic." He chuckled. "I panic better than I season." They adjusted the pot together, added ginger, stirred, waited. The porridge wasn't perfect, a little watery, a bit too much ginger, but it was warm, and it was theirs. Grayson carried the bowl upstairs carefully. Callie stirred when he entered. "Grayson." He sat beside her and blew gently on the spoon. "Open," he said. She blinked. "You made this, with Lily's guidance." She opened her mouth. He fed her slowly. She winced at the first bite. "It's awful, isn't it?" he asked. "No," she whispered. "It's perfect." A moment of silence stretched between them. Callie's eyes shimmered. "You didn't have to. I wanted to." He looked away. "For the first time in my life, I wanted to take care of someone." Later, as Callie drifted into sleep, Grayson sat by her side. Lily curled up next to her mother, dozing softly. Grayson didn't move. He just watched the rise and fall of their breaths, the peaceful way they fit together, the way their presence had filled this house with something it had lacked for decades, a soul. And as he reached forward to brush a damp strand of hair from Callie's forehead, something inside him shifted. A weight lifted. A wall cracked. It wasn't duty pulling him to stay. It was love. Not the kind from movies or grand declarations, but the quiet, steady kind that whispers, "You matter." That night, Grayson didn't return to his room. He stayed in the chair beside them, keeping watch like a silent sentinel. For once, the house didn't echo with silence. It pulsed with something warmer, something real. And somewhere in the stillness, the man who built an empire from stone began to soften into someone who could feel again. The Hale estate had never been loud. Its polished marble floors echoed footsteps with clinical precision. Its vaulted ceilings swallowed sound like a cathedral of solitude. And Grayson Hale, its master, had lived within those walls for years, not in silence, but in something far colder, emptiness. Until Callie Brooks came along, it started with small things. A sticky note on the fridge, kitchen rules. 1, wash hands. 2, smile once. 3, don't let the coffee machine judge you. A bowl of lemons placed in the center of the dining table like a miniature sun. Open windows. Music, real music, drifting from a phone speaker tucked into the apron she wore while flipping pancakes. Laughter not forced or polite, but real. It seeped into the woodwork. The mansion, once still as stone, began to breathe again. By the 4th week, Grayson noticed he was no longer eating alone. Callie insisted on breakfast like civilized people, meaning cereal, scrambled eggs, and awkward conversation at the table, while Lily made faces in her glass of milk. One morning, as Grayson sipped his espresso, Callie set down a plate in front of him and said casually, "Try this. It's banana pancakes with less sugar and more hope. He raised a brow. That's not an actual recipe. She grinned. It is in this house. He took a bite. It was surprisingly good. She nudged the spatula toward him. Your turn. I don't cook. You also said you don't laugh. And yet, here we are. She stood her ground. Grayson, to his own shock, found himself holding a spatula. With Callie guiding his hands, he poured batter into the pan. She leaned in. Now, feel the rhythm. Pancakes are about trust. 1, 2, 3, flip. He flipped. It landed halfway on the counter, a little on the floor. Callie paused, then burst out laughing. Lily clapped. It's a rebel pancake, it escaped. Grayson blinked. And then he laughed too. Loud, full-bodied, alive. The kitchen, once a cold chamber of utility, had become a stage for joy. That afternoon, he wandered into the great room and saw Callie crouched beside the robot vacuum, whispering. He raised an eyebrow. Are you talking to the cleaning equipment? Callie didn't even blink. I renamed him Sir Sucks-a-Lot. He's currently cleaning the mansion's emotional gray zones. Grayson crossed his arms. You're serious? Completely. Adults listen better when you personify things. Thought I'd try it on Sir Roomba, and maybe on you. I don't respond to manipulation. Good. Then listen to this freely. You need an afternoon off, no reports, no meetings, just one afternoon to let this house remember how to laugh. Grayson stared at her. No one ever told him what he needed, but Callie's suggestion didn't feel like a demand. It felt like a prescription. She handed him a paper ticket. 1 laugh plus 1 glass of lemonade, redeemable any time. He accepted it, didn't say a word, just placed it in the top drawer of his desk, right beside the heart-shaped sticky note she'd left weeks ago. That evening, music floated from the kitchen. Not the sterile instrumentals he usually played, but a jazzy, upbeat song with real brass and bounce. Grayson leaned against the doorway. Callie spun lightly apron, puffing like a skirt, flipping vegetables in a skillet. Her hair had come loose from its bun's soft strands clinging to her cheek. She caught him watching. Hey, she said breathlessly. Want to join my anti-boredom dance class? I don't dance. Then whistle. He started to shake his head, then paused. Because he had whistled earlier, just a note, maybe 2, when he was setting down files, not even realizing it. She saw the change in his expression. Her voice softened. You don't have to whistle. Just be here. He stayed. They didn't talk much after that. They didn't need to, because something was changing. Not just in him, not just in her, but in the house itself. Later that night, as he passed the kitchen, he noticed the rulebook was still there. The lemons still glowed on the table. Sir Sucks-a-Lot hummed contentedly by the fireplace. And somewhere inside him, a realization settled. This place is no longer a house. It was becoming a home. He found himself in the library, running a hand along the books he hadn't touched in years. The silence didn't echo anymore. It held warmth. The next morning, Lily greeted him with a smile and asked Uncle Grayson, Did you redeem your lemonade yet? He smiled. Not yet. She tilted her head. Well, I think today's a good day. And for once in his life, he agreed. The photograph wasn't meant for the world. It had been a simple moment. Callie Brooks, Grayson Hale, and 6-year-old Lily sitting on a checkered blanket in the middle of Brookside Park, a kite tangled in the tree above them, orange juice spilled near the corner of the basket, and 3 smiling faces caught in a rare beam of sun. But someone had captured it, and within 48 hours it was everywhere. Headline, Cold Billionaire Grayson Hale, spotted laughing with mysterious woman and child. Secret family. The media had a field day. Stockholders weren't amused, nor were the board members of Hale Technologies. Grayson was in the middle of a quarterly strategy call when his assistant Trent slid the newspaper across the table. He paused mid-sentence. There it was. His face, his laugh, Callie's sunlit smile. Lily curled against his side like she belonged there. The room fell silent. His jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. Not yet. By noon, a video conference was called by the company's most senior board members. In the body de Forreporstauerste, the screen lit up with familiar sterile faces. An older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes spoke first. Grayson, she said curtly, you're trending, and not in the way we'd prefer. I've seen the photo, he replied evenly. A male board member leaned in. Is it true that you're involved with, he paused, adjusting his tie, your housekeeper. Grayson's silence was answer enough. The woman pressed on. Do you understand what this could do to your image, to our partnerships? We've built a brand on excellence, discretion, on being above scandal. Grayson's gaze didn't waver. And now she continued, voice sharpening. We're dealing with whispers about you raising someone else's child, a maid's child no less. This could damage everything. Another voice chimed in, one he barely recognized. With all due respect, but she's not of your class, Grayson. That was the last straw. Grayson leaned forward, voice low, but like steel. Let me tell you something. Everyone froze. You're right, she's not of my class. The room held its breath. She's above it. Silence. She's honest. She's kind. She's done more to repair my life than any of you ever have. So, if any of you want to judge her or me for smiling in a park instead of posing on a red carpet, consider this your invitation to leave the board. No one moved. Gossip about her again, he added, and your resignation letters better be in my inbox by morning. Click. He ended the call. Meanwhile, Callie had heard nothing. She was upstairs folding laundry when her phone buzzed. Group chats, news alerts. A friend from her old apartment complex sent her a screenshot. Her hands trembled. Her stomach dropped. She opened the article. There they were, her Grayson and Lily framed as scandal. She didn't finish reading. Instead, she rushed down the hallway. Grayson had just entered the front door when she caught him. Mr. Hale, she blurted, voice shaking. I saw the photo, the articles. I didn't know someone took. If this causes problems for you, I'll resign. I never meant to. Stop, he said gently. Her words faltered. He stepped closer, his voice steady. Callie, never think of yourself as a burden. If anyone should leave, it's the gossip, not you. She stared up at him, eyes filling. But I'm just... You, he interrupted, are the reason this house breathes again. And Lily. Just then, as if summoned by her name, Lily ran in from the back garden. She hugged Grayson's leg tight. Uncle Grayson, I told my friends at school, you ate Mama's cake. Both adults froze. Lily looked up, beaming. They said that means you like Mama. Callie's face turned scarlet. Grayson chuckled, bending down to ruffle Lily's hair. And what do you think? I think you look at her like you see stars, Lily said simply. Even when it's daytime. Grayson turned toward Callie. She was trying to look away. He stepped forward. You heard her, he murmured. I did, she whispered, her voice trembling. A beat passed. The moment hung in the air, delicate and undeniable. That night, Callie sat on the balcony off the guest room, wrapped in a blanket. The wind moved gently through the trees. Somewhere, an owl called. Below, the lights in the kitchen glowed like the warmth of a home that had been reclaimed. Grayson stepped out beside her. For once, he didn't speak right away. He just looked at the woman beside him, the woman who had walked into his house with scuffed shoes and a stubborn smile, and changed everything. Finally, he said softly, I don't know how hard the future will be, but one thing I do know. He turned to her fully. I won't let anyone take you or Lily from me. Callie exhaled, voice catching in her throat. I believe you, and she did, because this wasn't the voice of a CEO making a deal. It was the voice of a man, choosing his family. The invitation arrived in a crisp black envelope with silver trim. Callie Brooks had never held something so elegant, so intimidating, or so out of place in her cluttered little world. It was embossed with the logo of the Avalon Grand Hotel, the same one that hosted elite tech galas, charity galas, and events attended by people who used legacy as a verb. And now, she had been invited. By Grayson Hale. Earlier that day, he had walked into the kitchen while she was elbow-deep in pastry dough. He stood awkwardly for a moment, as if unsure whether to speak. Hey, he finally said, clearing his throat like a teenager at a school dance. I have a thing tonight. She looked up confused. A thing? A gala. Her eyes narrowed. Let me guess. 500 suits, 800 glasses of wine, no real food. Something like that. He stepped closer and extended the envelope. I'd like you to come with me. Callie stared at it. Me, she asked. Grayson, I'm just... Not just anything, he interrupted. I want you by my side, not as staff, as you. She hesitated, her fingers coated in flour, then nodded. I don't own anything sparkly, she said softly. He smiled. I've got that part covered. That night, when Callie stepped into the ballroom, It was like watching color spill into a black and white photo. She wore a simple, elegant navy dress. Not too tight, not too loud. Her hair was pulled back in soft curls. No diamonds, just a silver bracelet and that unmistakable glow she always carried when she laughed. Heads turned. Not because she sparkled the brightest, but because she didn't try to sparkle at all. People whispered, "Who is she?" She doesn't look like the women he usually brings. She's so normal. And yet, she moved with ease. When a guest dropped her silk clutch, Callie didn't hesitate. She knelt, picked it up and added with a sheepish smile, "Good thing it wasn't champagne. I'm still recovering from a lemonade spill." Laughter rippled around them. Grayson watched from a distance, stunned. She hadn't tried to fit in. She had made the room fit her. Throughout the evening, Callie unknowingly touched hearts. She helped a flustered waiter rearrange glasses on a teetering tray. She guided an elderly board member who'd forgotten his glasses back to his table. She complimented the chef on his tartlets. And every time Grayson looked across the room, she was smiling. Not to impress, not to charm, but because that's who she was. And something inside him cracked open wider. Later that night, after the ballroom had emptied and the chandeliers dimmed, Grayson led her to the rooftop garden. It was quiet there. The city lights stretched out below them. Fairy lights flickered along the railings. Callie clutched her shawl, suddenly shy again. "I hope I didn't embarrass you." Grayson turned to her. "No," he said gently. "You lit up that entire room." She lowered her gaze, her voice trembling. "I don't belong in your world." "You belong in my world," he said. "Not the world of suits and headlines. Mine. The one that finally started breathing again when you walked into it." A long silence followed. Then, almost shyly, he reached for her hand. "I'm not great at saying this sort of thing," he admitted, "but I don't want you to be the housekeeper anymore." She blinked. "You want me to quit? I want you to be part of my life. Not for a few days, not just for Lily's bedtime stories, for always." Callie stared at him, stunned, then laughed, a little breathless, a little disbelieving. "Grayson, are you proposing?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm proposing the idea of proposing." Her shoulders shook with laughter. "Only you would pre-negotiate a proposal." He took both her hands now, his voice low, rough with emotion. "Callie, I've built empires, closed impossible deals. But nothing has meant more to me than waking up to your laughter in my house, than Lily calling me uncle, than knowing that you see me. Not the title, not the money, but me." Her eyes filled. "Don't call me Mr. Hale anymore," he whispered. "Just call me yours." Just then, the rooftop door swung open and Lily peeked out, rubbing her eyes. "I knew it," she cried, grinning. "Uncle Grayson likes Mommy." Both adults burst into laughter, the last of the fear melting into something warm and solid and true. Grayson picked Lily up and spun her in the air. Callie stood there watching them under the soft garden lights, her heart full. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't looking at something she might lose. She was looking at something she could build. A year had passed. 12 quiet, extraordinary months since the night on the rooftop, where Grayson Hale, the man once known for being colder than steel, took a leap of faith under fairy lights and clumsy confessions. And in that time, everything had changed. The Hale estate, once echoing and empty, now echoed for very different reasons. Laughter rang down the marble halls. Tiny feet thudded against the hardwood as Lily raced through the library playing hide-and-seek with Grayson. There were crumbs on the counter, dishes drying on a towel, a basket of stuffed animals in the hallway that no one had the heart to move. The mansion wasn't perfect anymore, but it was alive. Callie Hale, no longer Brooks, stood at the stove, flipping banana pancakes with extra hope, humming as she worked. Her hair was tucked into a loose braid. A gold band now circled her finger. She glanced out the window where Grayson was letting Lily bury his feet in the sandbox. He didn't even flinch. Just sat there smiling, letting her pile sand like she was building a fortress around his ankles. Callie shook her head and laughed. The man who once couldn't smile without corporate approval now spent Saturdays as a human sandcastle. Grayson wasn't just a husband now. He was Dad. It hadn't happened overnight. The first time Lily called him that, it was tentative. Dad. Die. Like she was testing the shape of the word. Grayson had frozen in the doorway, coffee in hand. And then slowly nodded. "Yeah," he said, "I like that." Since then, the title had stuck. That night after dinner, Lily sat in the living room scribbling with crayons while Grayson and Callie cleaned up the dishes. "I think she's up to something," Callie said, drying a plate. "Always," Grayson replied. Sure enough, moments later, Lily ran in, beaming. "Close your eyes." They obeyed. "Okay, open." She held up a drawing. It was of the three of them, Grayson, Callie, and Lily, standing outside the house. But this time, there was someone else. A tiny baby between them, swaddled in pink. Callie stared. Grayson blinked. "Who's this?" Callie asked gently. Lily grinned. "That's my sister. Or brother. I haven't decided." Callie looked at Grayson stunned. He smiled. Lily added, "I think we need one more person in our team. Families should have at least 4, don't you think?" Callie's cheeks flushed. "Well, that's something to consider." Grayson crouched and pulled Lily into a hug. "We'll do our best, kiddo." Later that night, Callie tucked Lily into bed. Grayson stood by the doorway watching his wife smooth back their daughter's hair, listening to her sleepy voice recite a story about a magical rabbit who always found his way home. He felt it then. Not a rush, not a flood, but a steady warmth. A peace he had never known before. Before bed, he walked to the study. Now, his quiet place not for deals or projections, but for reflection. On his desk were 2 things he'd never removed. A yellow sticky note that read, "Even money deserves a little love," and a hand-drawn laugh ticket from Callie creased at the corners, but still intact. He added the latest crayon drawing beside them, the 4 of them. Complete, he looked out the window where the moonlight spilled across the lawn, and he whispered, "I didn't build this house. You 2 did." He turned off the light and made his way back down the hall where his family was waiting. Sometimes love doesn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it slips in quietly, through a sticky note left on a desk, through laughter echoing from a kitchen, through a child's crayon drawing that redefines the word home. Grayson Hale had spent most of his life building walls, tall, impenetrable walls of status logic and fear. But it only took one woman's wit, one child's fearless honesty, and a little spilled porridge to tear them all down. What began as a 2-week trial became a lifelong commitment, not just to a job or a title, but to warmth, to vulnerability, to family. In the end, it wasn't money or success that changed Grayson. It was banana pancakes on sleepy mornings. It was being called daddy by a girl who once tiptoed around him. It was the feeling of finally being chosen, not by shareholders or the press, but by 2 people who saw his heart before his last name. So maybe the story wasn't about a billionaire learning how to love. Maybe it was about a man learning how to live. And in doing so, finding everything he never knew he was missing. Because sometimes, the most unexpected love stories are the ones that don't start with "once upon a time," but with "Hi, I'm here for the job," and possibly the gauntlet, and end with "Welcome home."